opting to go for the second floor, first floor bomb sites. So once again, the changes to the meta, the addition of Wamai and Malusi as well, are going to make a big difference. Let's waste no time. John, let's get into Cafe Dostoyevsky, and it'll be our very first map here between Space Station and DarkZero.
Let's get right into it. First ban's already rolling out as Maverick is going to be taken out of the pool. Maverick has been used a lot recently as a safe hard breach, especially when you see bans coming out on operators like Thatcher, which I don't think as of this patch anyway, we're going to see happen as commonly anymore, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, as we'll see here in just a second, as it's going to be Ace instead that gets knocked out, often becoming a much more common ban now that he's been allowed into the pool here.
Waiting on that first defender ban to go with it, and it's Amira taken out. She's actually had a bit less time in the spotlight when it comes to defenders getting banned. The choices recently have revolved around Valkyrie. You've seen a lot of Wamai bans. There he is. SSG doesn't want to deal with him. If Echo is available and the teams have not agreed to avoid him, he could also take up a spot. And with it being a team like SSG, there are targeted defender bans. A lot of the times tends to be Pulse, because that's one of Canadian's strongest operators, just as we have seen shield bans to try to hurt DarkZero, and that being in the hands of Mint. So there is some flexibility here for counter bans. I would say more than anything, these aren't necessarily counter bans. Maverick is very much targeted towards Hot and Cold. Hot and Cold is likely going to sit on Hibana for the entirety of this matchup. But when you look at the rest of the bans, these are going to be operators that are incredibly strong in the meta right now. They have gadgets that work effectively on this map, and I think it's going to work both ways for both teams. I don't think there's going to be any major hindrance here outside of that Maverick against DarkZero.
Thatcher is going to be snuck in as a 6th pick here as well for the attackers on DarkZero. They traded out an IQ for it, which means they're not going to have easy vision onto any of the Valkyrie cameras that are more than likely going to be thrown out here by Canadian. Doesn't mean, of course, they can't spot them, just going to have to do a little bit more work to find those out. We also get a very quick answer to the Echo question here, as it's immediately brought into play by Fultz on round number 1. So indeed, we will be seeing him utilized in the course of this series here. So it'll be brought in the very first round. Other than that, SSG have set themselves up for a pretty straightforward library defense. You'll see the extended hold being set up here on the 3rd floor to allow SSG to maintain control of Cocktail and that Whitehall area just to the outside of it for as long as they can hopefully do, to try and waste time away from the ticker here on DarkZero's attack.
So as we've come to expect, yeah, that 3rd floor is going to be a major pivotal spot, and I'm curious to see if SSG plays it aggressively or if they just fall back to Cocktail and try to hold from that spot, because most teams are going to be able to just whisk right in and take control of the top of red. There's going to be some barbed wire in their way. They're not really going to have too much of a contest once that's opened up. And then you can see the hatch get just smashed open by Skies here. It's obvious that DZ is going to drop red and then continue onward. Rampy will play it quite aggressively, so he's not going to fall back, and he's got Bosco within arm's reach and Piano. So SSG, I think, are taking a bit of a chance being up this far, but now they have an ability to drop down if need be. Rampy can, of course, escape through the balcony as well.
Yeah, Bosco very, very aware of the possibility that this could go bad quickly when you see him opening that hatch right there. So just kind of getting ready if the worst should happen. The same can be said for Rampy with Skylight here, as you can constantly see him checking his vision back there. And it's a good thing he does too, because now he gets early warning on his flashbang, is going to be able to get out of the way of it. Not so much to be said for Bosco, though, as he does get caught falling back further down Whitehall. The good news, though, is Canadian is in position to immediately trade that back out. Hyper is going to die there. The attackers will lose control over their Zofia, and Canadian is still going to stay in action a little bit here too, although it's a bit detached from the current main fight. He's down on the 1st floor. He's going to try to get some intel before he strikes next.
You have to imagine that the smoke would likely be playing over by the B bomb site, a fallback from Bosco to the hatch that's open on the right side of the screen, dropping into laundry and then playing off of those 2 openings in there. In this case, it's likely going to be somebody with a C4 now playing in this spot, either Thinking Nate or Canadian, because your default plant spot is through the reading doorway in the top right of your screen, and it's Thinking Nate who's close enough by. But SSG continue to surprise me. They are not backing off, and by picking these openings that they have and how Bosco and Rampy were playing above, they are taking the fight to DarkZero in a coordinated bout of aggression that, if DZ performs anywhere near as sharply as they did in the mini major, SSG could be easily losing these gunfights.
Well, we can see Sky's setting up right now for a bit of top-down angles to be able to work off, to hopefully get them towards a plant, which, unfortunately for DarkZero, they're running out of time to try and get to that point here. Oh, going to see a soft destruction charge get eaten up as well by an ADS that was left up, so unfortunate for Mint, but not a huge loss at the end of the day here. Definitely something they'll just have to get by very quickly and work to go for the plant anyway, which you now see they're getting in position to do just outside of that library door you were talking about before. On now moving in, he's going to check out a flash before he attempts to go for the plant. He doesn't have the best cover currently, so this is a bit risky, but the job is getting done. Mint starts this off well. Plant goes onto the ground. Unfortunately, the planter is not going to stay alive for very long. Thinking Nade quickly reconfirms the death of Hot and Cold, taking him out, and is now going to go for more as well as he takes out Mint, probably saving Rampy's life in the process. It all falls down to Skies now in a 1v3 situation, and he does have top-down control, meaning that if there's an attempt to counter defuse, he can more than likely stop it. No frag grenades to confirm it, but there we go. There's the angle I was just referring to a moment ago. Rampy goes down. Unfortunately for him, though, Fultz is going to regroup back up at Cocktail, take him out, and there should be plenty of time left to get on the counter defuse and close out the round for SSG.
Not sure exactly what Canadian's plan was playing down below, because it's not like you can nitro sell the default plant spot that would happen inside of reading, but the Valkyrie comes up at just about the right time to get in on the fray. Now, he does get taken down, but while he's removed from action, he's able to distract what looked to be two separate members of DarkZero, and the rest of his team were able to pick them off. Thinking Nade in that very important spot, as I talked about, over by Laundry, his nitro cell could not connect, but he gets Hot and Cold right as he comes off the defuse and then swings out towards Pillars. The Ash of Mint has not been able to course correct after both Mint and Eclipse were the two players from DZ who were by Pillars that had been distracted by the Valkyrie heading back that way. It is also possible to nitro cell through the doorway of reading in hopes of catching the default plant spot going down and reading from where Canadian was playing. That could have been what he was going for, but he heard the commotion above him of the various DZ members that had just dropped off the balcony. Either that, or maybe he was playing downstairs because he suspected that somebody would have been coming for him. Maybe he was trying to waste time. I'm not entirely sure the thought process on why he was down there, but he came back at just about the right time, and it bought his team enough on the clock to be able to allow the rest of them to capitalize. And no matter how good of a job Skies is doing upstairs, there was no intel for him on Fultz, as the Echo, whose yokai had failed to deny the plants twice, takes matters into his own hands and then has but a couple seconds to get on that diffuser before time runs out. Well played by Spacestation, I will say, on the retake, especially after they completely conceded control of the bomb site, but retook it with a lot of confidence.
So after some early success here from SSG on the second floor hold, they're not going to go down to the first floor, more than likely before attempting a third floor hold on the round after this. Of course, depending on how this defense specifically goes. We got that extended defense up to the second floor once more. Obviously, a much lesser emphasis on it in this round due to the capability that the defenders have overall to kind of turtle in this site if the need should arise for it. But that doesn't mean they're not going to play out on their top angles anyway. Thinking Nade right now being the man to do this as he currently holds control over those rooms directly over one of the kitchen's sites. And away from that, DarkZero, as we take a look at their pressure, mainly working its way into Bakery right now, with Hyper and Hotten already having control, just clearing out utility, looking for Valkyrie cams along with anything else that might be in the area before they start to go to work on these walls here. And the prep wall has been left soft. That's going to potentially open up some angles for either team there, but the main focus for DarkZero is on taking care of that Banshee, which is going to be done quite easily, thankfully, due to the Zofia being brought.
The one thing that the Maverick ban is going to completely change up is the amount of control that you can take inside of Bakery without really ceding too much of that part of the map to your opponents. We've seen time and time again teams very craftily cut a line or two through the wall, and even though the wall itself isn't completely opened, it's still enough control for them to be able to exert pressure onto the defenders that are playing on the other side. That is a hell of a shot from Bosco, as he just annihilates Hot and Cold, and with Hyper unfortunately exiting the match just a couple seconds prior, Spacestation finds themselves in a 5v3 with half of the round to go.
Bosco's going to continue to hold this angle as well, and hopes that he could potentially pick up a second kill if the opportunity presents itself. And Fultz is holding an additional angle as well here, meaning Bosco's going to be even more secure. Realistically, only has to watch to his left in the primary kitchen angle, as that main door is being covered by his teammate currently. So DarkZero down, like I said, unfortunately to 3 due to the disconnection of their 4th player. Going to try their best to work this round back under their control. They do have access to the site through Bakery, but just no easy way to push in. This is all because of the angle from Bosco primarily. I believe with some assistance also coming in from deeper in towards Freezer there. Bosco picks up yet another kill. DarkZero go down to 2 here. It's all on Skies and Mint, trying to make a miracle happen. We can see some shots ringing out from Skies. He tries to put damage, I believe, on a Canadian back there, but whether he actually got vision on him, still yet to be seen. Knows for sure he's there now, but still not going to be given much at this point, considering how little time is left. There's not really a reason for Canadian to have to swing out onto that. Mint will move forward here, though, and finally pick up the first kill of the round for SSG as Rampy goes down, I believe, over by Kochek. And now with the warning coming out, we can more than likely expect an increase in pace here to come in from the DarkZero roster. They've missed the note on catching Canadian. He's since fallen way back here. The final two going to try to brute force their way in through the main kitchen door. Bosco gets his third. Canadian gets the final frag, and SSG swiftly close out round number 2.
And it's likely that we're going to need a rehost here, so we've got plenty of time to dive into exactly what happened. But with Hyper being the one to disconnect, he was playing on the Zofia. If memory serves me correctly, she is an extremely strong operator in just about every single bomb site here. And Hyper's actually rejoined the game, so we won't need a rehost. That is cause for celebration. John, I don't know if you noticed, just stopping myself for a second here, better Twitch TV emotes have now been enabled. So, yeah. So, it's one of my favorite emotes. It might not apply here perfectly, but Hyper is back in the game. So we could chat if we could cat jam. I would like to see some cats jamming to Hyper making his return.
That's been by far the most spammed emote since it's been activated.
The people wanted cat jam, John, and we had to give it to them. We didn't have a choice, which is hilarious because I don't know who did this, but huge hats off to them. I could dig through my Discord logs from when I said, hey, can we add BTTV or Frankers, the FFZ emotes? I asked that like 3 years ago and was told like, no, it's unprofessional. So I don't know who now is saying, you know what, it might not be professional, but we love cat jam. So they've enabled it. So kudos to them and hats off to them. But
you didn't have to used to enable it either. It used to just be on by default. So it's a newer thing.
I am very happy, and I'm sure the denizens of Twitch are happy as well. But so a couple things with that attack, though. The lack of Maverick means that when you open up the wall, there is a greater viewpoint for the defenders to see you from. And I mean, Bosco showed that off immediately in the round once the 2 openings had been created by the ex-Kairos of Hibana. The front of Bakery is completely opened up with Hibana or Thermite on the board. Not the same with the Maverick on the board. Now, the way the DZ plays a Bakery take is they do open up a portion of the wall, but the rest of it is just lines for them to be able to hold off of. And given that they have 5 players who are very adept at hitting their shots, you as a defender have essentially lost that. You can't actively peek it unless you are willing to engage in a 50-50, which not every team is. Spacestation seems to be quite committed to take 50-50s right now, so maybe they would. But what it also means when you lose your Zofia right off the rip is that you can't do any discovery work inside of the bomb site. Number one, if you're going to be clearing out any ADSs, can't really do it as easily anymore because you're going to be missing 2 concussions. If there's any evil eyes that need to be taken care of, any deployable shields, your best operator for doing that, other than somebody with frag grenades, as we see the Sledge have, is the Zofia. So just losing Hyper right away and then not having the Maverick at their disposal meant that the likelihood of taking Kitchen fell to basically 0 for DarkZero. And, well, we saw they still had, what, 4 players alive on Space Station side of things. They didn't break a sweat.
Did see a little bit of damage here at the beginning of the round on the Hyper, more than likely coming from Thinking Innate as he holds this Washroom's defense currently, obviously against the repel from not just Hyper, but at least 1 or 2 other players from DarkZero. They're going to move away from that, though. I believe at least one of them is going to go up to the top and group up with the main portion of the team that's now working for better control inside of the actual building. I believe that one on repel from before is now going to hop over towards the new balcony as well and see if they can pick anything up from there, or lucky to force a player from SSG into the open. You can see Hyper being on that position right now. Away from that, though, again, still focusing very heavily on the drone work and trying to see what exactly the lineup is right. Oh, no, never mind. DarkZero just going to hop 2 players in from Skylight. It's going to lead to a series of trades, but ultimately SSG seems to be holding them back. No, maybe not, as both Eclipse and Skies were able to find trades for the loss of their players from a few seconds ago. Skies gets into Freezer and finds himself yet another one as Fultz goes down, and all of a sudden it's down to Rampy, who was holding white control during this whole charade. He's going to try his best here to bring this back under his control in a 1v3 scenario. They already know where he's positioned, chooses not to rotate and holds the angle instead. That'll give him 1 down on a player. No confirmation just yet, though, and unfortunately he's brought down to low HP, so the repeat from Hyper swinging the same angle is enough to trade him out, take him down, and close out on the round from DZ with a very straightforward but very successful attacking strategy.
In the olden days of Space Station, this would have been a setup where a Mute, a Mozzie, possibly a Vigil would have prevented most of those attacking teams from realizing that the significant blind spot in Space Station's defense was that skylight, and you called it absolutely correctly when SSG were overwhelmed and just absolutely got swamped from a DZ hot drop, which you don't see every day, especially not in North America. And because DZ can fall back on having operators with good guns and having good aim, and we know their communication from all the videos that they share on social media, it's a position and a situation in which DZ are going to flourish, and they did just that. They dropped in. You know the relative spots of where the defenders are going to play. There's likely going to be somebody in the bar back store. There's going to be one playing in piano. Somebody's probably going to be over by white. You've got one over by cocktail. The question mark is where the fifth is going to be. And DZ just dropped in and they'd pinpointed those 4 operators with the exception of the question mark. Rampy gets isolated on the top of white stairs because DZ don't put themselves in a position where they are in a line of sight from top of white until, of course, they went to go for a plant over by cocktail. But at that point, it's a 1v3. If you stick together and you don't push separately, which is what DZ did not do, DZ followed the advice of everybody who plays this game at a top level. There's no way that Rampy is going to be able to get himself out of that position. He's a talented player. We're just simply going to get overwhelmed. And there's a reason why DZ doesn't tend to lose, you know, XV1s the same way other teams do. And it's a combination of good comms, good aim, and good strategy. So with that, DarkZero just realizes that their best opportunity is to take the fight right to Space Station. Strategy, trying to take piano and all that be damned. And DZ engages in a fist fight that they come out on top of.
Really good stuff from DarkZero. Build up an eventual explosion out onto the site that works beautifully for them. Is going to force SSG back to their original site choice. Mind you, this is one that they've won for themselves already here. Just not feeling the confidence to go back to that 3rd floor hold after what had transpired back on round number 3. You're going to see members of DZ following the same overall beginning plan, though, as you still have to go for similar 3rd floor control against the 2nd floor hold, as we've already seen DarkZero try to do previously. Bit of roaming presence to clear out, but it does look like SSG already have a large majority of their player base on the 2nd floor. Doesn't mean they're going to stay there, though, as you can see at least 3 players working their way towards white stairs as of this moment. But other than that, SSG only have 1 player contained on the 3rd floor itself, further back towards cocktail and white. Away from that, DarkZero have also started to take some map control for themselves now, as they're moving in from the train windows, it looks like successfully able to take control there.
This echo being up was not enough to stop the plant in round number 1, the only round where DZ was able to get their objective play off despite still falling behind in that round. And it is very likely that DarkZero was well aware of an echo being on the board, and a big part of why I imagine DZ have swapped out the Ash in Mint's hands and instead gone for the IQ. And you could have seen earlier in this round that Mint excels with that gadgetry and will likely have the scanner out. Now, the question is going to be, will they actually be able to shoot those echo drones, or will they be in locations where Space Station know they are relatively safe? The focus at the moment from DarkZero is coming over from mining, and no way you don't see that, Hyper, as Fultz just pounces on that kill. And that is just once again bravado from Space Station time after time, and it pays off at the start of round number 4's execute.
The round as well here. We're going to lose Hyper. Questionable amount of the utility actually utilized. Definitely looks like at least 1 or 2 of the impact charges were used. Beyond that, though, most notably the stun charge is going to go to wasted as the Zofia is lost very early on yet again here. Away from that, though, DarkZero still have some admirable control for the time point in the round that they're at. Approaching the 30-second mark, their pickest obstacle is going to be getting the entire team together, but I think with good control of red, they should be able to do that quite easily, which is what they're looking to get towards now. Mint nearly being able to get himself a fight, realized that there might be a camera in the process of that, but also a fatal mistake. He's missed the transition from Fultz. Great repositioning from him as it guarantees a win in the fight. Bosco also has success in taking out Hot and Cold. Eclipse will find a trade, but as we can see, Fultz very close to finding one on his own. He might not get the opportunity to get it, though, as he's losing teammates like crazy. Thankfully, recovers, though, and takes out Eclipse, bringing it all onto Skies, who will try his best to clutch out the 1vx, but Thinking Nade comes out on top of the final duel, and SSG maintain a 3-1 lead.
Heck of a seesaw of a round, given the fact that it was a very strong hold by Space Station, puts them up on big numbers, and then DZ fights their way through that top floor, and then they stumble as they go to drop back down. And you can see right there, Eclipse falters, Skies falters, and the large part of that was that the clock was ticking away and you didn't have as much intel as you needed. Additionally, I would suspect there was probably at least one yokai up and reading. Thinking Nade was able to play off of those comms when Skies marched on in. And SSG is quite determined to continue to run this operator. It stands to reason now why neither of these teams opted for, well, maybe one of the teams. We don't know exactly how it broke down, but there is no gentleman's agreement for Echo, and he will continue to be brought. Suspect an IQ on the board pretty much every round to combat that. And, well, if you're suspecting that, then you won't be surprised to see that DarkZero are very committed to that IQ operator pick. It is worth noting, though, John, that for the next matchup, which is TSM versus Tempo Storm coming up after this, which will be casted by Kickstar and Stokes, that both of the teams have come to an agreement. There will be no Echo played in that matchup. So it's nice to see teams at least come to agreements, whether it's agreeing to play or not. Want any dissension among the ranks here?
You are. All right, folks. Well, other than what we're seeing with the Echo play, and the change up the operator, or the player who is on the operator, things are going to stay pretty much the same here for SSG's defense, moving back down into the freezer and kitchen sites. Very much what you expect for this, as there's going to be a lot of emphasis on defending the main kitchen. There are reinforcements this time on a prep where it was left soft previously, so a little bit of a change up there for SSG. But other than that, things are being played pretty much the same way. Also, no Kaid this time either for the denial, due to the fact that it got dealt with almost immediately by DarkZero last round. So they're thinking that the utility is better served with a different operator here, and they're probably correct on that.
So, with this being a defense of the kitchen all the way on the bottom floor, instead of just rushing in through bakery as we'd seen DarkZero do previously, they're going to clear from the top down. And this is something that we've seen teams on Cafe do quite a lot, especially if they're wary of the defending team doing a 1-2-2 or 2-1-2 setup, depending on how this is going to go. Now, this is quite the run out, and it might get caught, and there it is. Yes, indeed. Hot and Cold was on drone just by the, what is that, the donut truck? Pastry truck, whatever you want to call it. The new, it used to be white, now it's pink. Anyway, Thinking Nade went for a run out, and he had a couple teammates there, but Hot and Cold was spotted, or Hot and Cold spots him, and that's a rough go for SSG to forfeit that, but they did earn a lot of time off of it, and they at least know the location of where the hard breach is. They'll force Hot and Cold to have to maneuver somewhere else if he wants to be a little cheeky, but
a little bit more drone work to make sure that there isn't going to be anyone else hiding out at bottom line. That's more than likely because we're about to see Hot and Cold go in through second floor and start to clear things out below that. Obviously, the top-down work being done here by Skies. That's Sledge, so that'll be his primary role here. And of course, if he can find any players trying to either drop a nade on their heads or just take the head right off with a bullet, it's going to be his other job here. Nade's going down into where we saw a lot of play from Bosco the last time this site was used, but he's on a different operator this time. The roles have shifted a little bit, so no longer going to be playing into that same position. Nade won't find much success as a result of that, but just trying to play off of recollection from the previous round. Skies does have some success in getting damage on the Fultz, though. He's able to bring him down to right around 60, catching him on a cross there for one of his top-down angles. Other than that, though, not finding much success here on trying to isolate out individual members of SSG. And this is good, too, because they are fighting from behind after having lost Thinking Nade on that run-out, so they do need to make sure they keep as many players alive here as possible before the eventual execute comes in, which should be happening any moment now. Fultz is going to take a little bit of a risk here, runs through the incendiary, and loses quite a bit of HP as a result of that. Skies will find the first entry, however, with the killing of Rampy.
Hot and Cold trying to get that diffuser down, but no, it's not going to happen. He got blasted out by the yokai, and Sky's still upstairs inside a train. Is just putting in so much work. Mint trying to stop Bosco, can't do it, and Bosco will lose Canadian, leaving just a 1v4. But there's some damage being done to Hot and Cold. He'll try to plant from the safety of the map curve. SMG-11 will drop Eclipse, but Hot and Cold should be able to get away with this one while Bosco fights inside of the service door. Waiting on top of it, still pings coming out. You can hear the telltale sounds of a yokai nearby, but Bosco's not going to be able to do much with it. Skies is still above on that second floor. At least we have to expect. No, he's made his way down to the bottom floor, watching the door, and Bosco will get caught by him the moment he gets out. There is no way for Bosco to get out without one member of DarkZero seeing him. An almost unwinnable situation. Only good news, the longer he takes, maybe Hyper can get back in. Nope, there he goes. Hot and Cold finishes him off. DZ take their second round after getting the diffuser down.
You can see him trying his best to work towards that. I think the disconnect might have thrown him off a little bit because I believe Hyper was somewhere over there towards Whiskey. I heard the death noise right before that, so...
Billing. SSG starting on defense on DZ's map, by the way. And so far, SSG is in the driver's seat, but only by a single round. And as you can see, between the gorgeous head of hairs and faces that are John and I, there is a game ready, and we'll cue right into it and not make you have to look at us any longer.
All right, guys, let's get into it here. See exactly what we're looking at for round number 6. As we're going to start off right where we left off here. And that means we're also going back to a fireplace and mining room defense, apparently, for SSG's final round here. Operator lineup is going to look fairly similar to what we've seen previously. Big emphasis on the echo play, but there's that pulse that Parker was talking about at the beginning of the match there. We haven't seen a whole lot of it yet, as Canadians primarily been on that Valkyrie that he had selected before, but now the pulse is going to be brought out.
Attackers need to locate and defuse as many bombs as they can.
Pulse on the very final defensive round, and it's going to be a bomb site that has not shown up just yet. The site rotation for SSG so far is reading room twice, kitchen twice, cocktail once. And, well, barring DZ's excluding DZ's victory on kitchen that just happened, the only other bomb site that they really struggled with was cocktail, which we do tend to see quite a fair bit. Up on that third floor, teams don't exactly like holding it because it doesn't allow you any room for error. Once you've lost control of piano and they've taken your defenses out around the skylight, you are essentially paralyzed. And what most teams used to do was put somebody down below with a nitro cell. But that is a very obvious defense that a lot of teams trot out. So most of your opponents will clear out that second floor first. That leaves only one other bomb site to go to, which is mining, which is where SSG is going to go. And do not be surprised if you see them holding that third floor as if it were a cocktail defense.
Wait for that. This will be interesting to see how this gets played out, specifically because obviously they're going to have to contest the windows towards mining and red stairs a little bit more actively this time. I was hoping we'd see Canadian playing close to it and there'd be active attempts to counterplay against the operators that were near it, but doesn't seem to be the main plan right now, though that could come into the picture a little bit later. Canadian primarily watching out for that east side of the building, trying to assist the extended room up on the third floor right now, more than anything else. As of course we can see the members of DZ focusing very much on the red and other hatch drop-ins here that they can then work towards getting towards the site from. Presumably they're going to take Christmas control, of course, before they start to work their way downstairs at a minimum, and ideally they'd want to clear out these players over in Cocktail too. But that's going to prove to be a little bit harder, mainly because there's 3 of them there right now, but also quite a few other factors as well.
The moment that Rampy gets the call, he'll drop through that hatch into laundry, so you don't need to worry about the echo getting into any particular engagement. Fultz is now on the Jaeger in a spot that Rampy was playing on Jaeger before. If you're not confused, don't worry, so are we. He's playing up at the top of white stairs by lumber or pallets or whatever teams want to call it. And this push from DZ is going to come about with about 90 seconds left. They're doing their due diligence to just try to clear out white stairs as best as they can, and we can see from the silhouettes there's somebody playing in that spot. If they go to move, you're going to essentially have a reflex test on hot and cold, and well, guess what? Old man, you take a seat. That's why you're on hard breach. Fultz walks away with that one, getting the very first pick for Space Station.
That's gonna be Carrier getting dropped for a second too, although it looks like DarkZero have already been able to retrieve it for themselves. Unfortunate turn of events once again here for DarkZero, as they just can't seem to catch a break. Skies is going to be dropped out, meaning this gets brought down to a 3v5. DarkZero fortunately having the disadvantage, getting pushed even further. A little bit of top-down coverage getting worked on here. Min, of course, just clearing on any cameras or any free utility that he can take out with his pistol from up on top. Other than that, the Zofia doing a lot of the work right now to clear out some top-down angles to work from. But like we said before, without the sledge, that's going to hurt them quite a bit with their capability to try to open that up and eventually attack the site now when it comes down to the wire, which it's getting to that point here for DarkZero. 27 seconds remaining. They do need to start negotiating for second floor control, or just start sending players down there to try and make plays, if anything at all. That seems to be the goal with Mint in position outside of the window. Other than that, though, there's nothing really being presented to Hyper or any of the other players hiding out in train, so they're just going to have to make a play for this. Going towards the hatches, getting ready to jump in. Until the IQ is probably not going to end up being too well off here due to the shotgun play, but is able to avoid that by routing around the other direction. Actually, he's going to get caught quite a bit here, but time runs out anyway, as unfortunately DarkZero just can't piece themselves together quickly enough, and as a result of that, SSG will win it out on the timer.
Very tough situation to find yourself in and to get out of alive. When Skies is removed, it doesn't really matter what operator he's playing on. It's now a 3v5, and you have the very difficult task of determining where the Echo is playing and where the Pulse is playing. And yeah, an IQ isn't poorly suited for that job by any stretch of the imagination. But if you sick the IQ on gadget duty, then that removes the IQ from your actual push, leaving you into essentially a 2v5, depending on how good of a job the Pulse and the Echo do at being able to hide and not let their utility get caught or spotted. At that point, you don't really have the destruction you need. You don't have the third floor control that you really need. SSG wisely peeled off, realizing that they didn't need to hold third floor as aggressively, and they could spread out on that second floor and watch the window that we saw leading out onto the balcony. They can watch the doorways leading from pillars, and they can excel in all of those areas, especially knowing that DarkZero would be working under the pressure of the clock. DarkZero did not have the tools at their disposal to be able to disrupt the defense from Spacestation, and they weren't going to win on gunfights alone because, as you could see from a handful of operators, SSG had crossfires established to be able to trade it off, or the DZ members would all have to head in through the same direction where they would be lucky to take out the SSG member before SSG gunned down somebody from DZ. So unfortunately now, another round for DarkZero where things have just not worked out the way they wanted, but they at least get a bit of a reset button. They can catch their breath now that they will be on defense for the remainder of this match unless overtime is required.
And as far as that first round defense is going to go, once again, fairly standard third floor hold here coming out from the DarkZero defense. We do have Mint extended out a bit on this hold, currently watching for any second floor lurks against him. But other than that, we've got your usual aggressive players spanning out to the west side of the map from the kind of stronghold that's going to be set up over towards Cocktail and Freezer, for their anchor players to wait for in the event SSG get to that point in the round. Hot and Cold, though, very much the front man right now to try to take any early duels, as we still see quite a bit of emphasis from SSG on trying to get into those hatches, as you might expect for really any attack against this third floor here. It's going to be actually pretty aggressive for Eclipse, notably. He's going to be getting very close to the windows here, hoping he gets lucky being able to see a player and hopefully isolate said player, but not this time. No luck in trying to spot anyone out there, so we will fall back to the relative safety of the pixel reinforcement.
A great display of the new Rainbow Six share skins on your screen as Hot and Cold is running the G2 Jaeger carbine skin. Skies earlier on, Sledge was running the liquid skin. And of course, Rainbow Six share is a continuation or a rebirth, a new phase, whatever you want to call it, that many people will remember fondly as being known as the pilot program. Kix and I actually talked about this. I believe it was on Wednesday. This was the brainchild of Stuart Ewan at Ubisoft along with the rest of the esports team. And the tier 1 skins are all out. We also saw Ninjas in Pajamas skin being run by Hot and Cold. So lots of credit being given to the opponents of DZ and SSG. And you, of course, can get them. The revenue is split, so some of that money will go back to the teams, it will go back towards prize pools, it will go towards the esports program, etc., and they are available today. So,
go grab them.
Just as Fultz grabs Hot and Cold?
Not as violently, but yeah. We'll see him.
I mean, yes, you don't need to murder to get the skins, I promise you. Though with how nice those skins look, I assume they will be murdering my wallet.
Well, a good start for SSG to continue their lead, of course, taking out the front and forward Jaeger from play. That's Hot and Cold removed from the round. Other than that, no significant damage done to anybody else on the DZ roster, so really just waiting for SSG to make the next move. Nice smoke catch right there. Is actually going to do a lot of damage to Fultz as he's brought down very low, but he gets the last laugh. Swings out further into Christmas, gets the immediate response. Bosco also finding a frag. Mint will pick one up. Successful hold into White as well as he goes for another one, but unfortunately finally meets his match against Thinking Nade, who is already into Cocktail with full control. SSG keep their lead growing strong with a win on the initial round for their attack.
This once again showing you why the Cocktail bomb site is so unfavorable to the defenders right now. You are not in good shape to be able to hold it once you lose control of Piano and Christmas, as you have referred to it as. A little bit of Stokes seeping through there on the Christmas call. But that's okay.
There's
John,
technically 2 Christmases on this map. So.
You are free of him today.
Sure, I can call it Cigar.
You are free of Stokes. We are all free of Stokes. No, I'm kidding. But once you lose control of the Red Hatch, unless the team that you are going up against, your opponents, the defenders, are playing down below, they can find themselves gradually getting boxed out, especially if the attackers keep somebody up at Skylight, which we will see teams do. There are post-plant strategies where the attackers will deliberately leave somebody on the roof to watch the diffuser going down, especially if that diffuser is planted in a relatively default spot, which can be by the one pillar up above in Cocktail, or even by the bar by the back storage. So by back bar store, and one of the most confusing callouts that exists in the game, by the way, and it scrambles my brain every single time, but very similar to where you're seeing on your screen right now, just on the left side of it. So,
10 seconds remaining.
and that's exactly what happened to DZ. They got boxed out. Skies had to fight his way out of the back bar. Couldn't do it. He lost his fight to Fultz. Fultz leveled up with every single kill he got. He pushed from Piano. He pushed over towards Pixel Spot. He took control of Whitehall. He got swung on. He won the fight on that one as well. Hot and Cold, I think, was the last one that was still alive in that spot playing on Goyo. But at that point, Space Station have Skylight control. They've got new balcony controller. They've got Heaven control. You are in a rough spot and you have just lost ground. The only thing you could conceivably do is get below with a Nitro Cell, as we've talked about. But teams will usually set up flank drones to spot that and call it out well in advance.
Mint trying to test out his skills there with an early run out. Unfortunately, no one from SSG spawning on that quadrant of the map, so we're not going to get anything for that. Didn't really get detected, though, so SSG really none the wiser as to what just transpired there. And away from that, SSG quickly working to get themselves in from the two hatches on the roof, heading towards the third floor. As you might expect, we've got the third floor hold here from DZ, including the extended hold at Pixel. Going to be this time for Skies to play into. On his own regard here, he'll have to be careful. He hears any utility coming his way, he's going to back away very quickly. There's that big red canister sitting on the back of the shield. If he's nearby, well, that's going to happen. It's going to blow up right in his face. Thankfully, it wasn't the case, and he's able to safely fall back further down the white stairs, where not only he's waiting, but as you can see from the silhouettes, there are two other players from DarkZero are also still holding Cocktail.
So SSG have just stormed on in and have that control over on the west side of the map. And they can do a lot of soft destruction work, and they'll likely continue to clear over towards back bar. And in that spot, they will come to a loggerheads with none other than Mint, who is playing by Cocktail. And he very likely has the hatch open to drop into laundry as well. The one that's going to be holding out, nope, the hatch is still closed, so Mint does not have an escape that he wants. The only person that was trying to keep the attackers at bay was none other than Eclipse, and he was playing over by the top of White. He's still there, anticipating a rappel in on White stairs, as it's now Mint dying to Rampy, making me look foolish by the fact that I said the only other operator that you were going to see that would be brought with frag grenades would be a Yana. Well, there's a Nook on the board, and Rampy will need to do some more damage after he's taken out Mint. A minute to go for Space Station to pull off and execute, or alternatively have DZ hang on despite trailing in man count.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about the Nook yet. Obviously, this is brought in so rarely. This is definitely a little bit of a change up here from SSG, but seemingly it's worked pretty well so far. Allows them to get all the way through bar and pick up that opening kill. The problem is going to be, though, is if this fails to translate into anything, which so far is the case for SSG, great. They've got third floor control, but they've been kind of given it considering there's less than a minute left when they take full control. Now they need to try and get down to the second floor and get onto the site with a very low amount of time, and it's going to be a rough ask for them at its minimum here. We can see, of course, the attempts to try and get down are just not really being led to much, but finally Bosco finds an opener. This should give the team a bit of confidence to play into it. They can't really play into it near White, though, and that's one of the big issues for them, but nonetheless, Canadian able to get very close and indeed confirm the plant just before he goes down, but that leaves only Bosco alive, who's been holding this top angle for so long. He's going to begin to chuck the frag grenades down because now why not? He's got to hold the post plant, but unfortunately for him, he only had one of them. That one that goes in the ground really just wastes time, takes the next duel, comes down on the losing end of it as well, as he'll be brought down to under 50 HP, but no one on counter defuse just yet, giving him zero opportunities for a free kill, and he'll never even get it, as Hyper immediately takes him down as Hot and jumps on counter defuse, and he'll be able to complete that with plenty of excess time, giving DarkZero the retake for round number 8.
Well, he might not have been the flashiest player so far in this lobby or in the game thus far, but that is a hell of a play from Hyper, and you see exactly why he is known to be so consistent. Though the kill feed was largely owned by Hot and Cold, who's also been good on the objective play, so it's good to see that he's living up to the first part of his name since the mini major and not the second part. So, with that said, what did DZ do right? Well, they actually did a strategy that looked very similar to the reading defense that we saw from Spacestation when they were on defense, and DZ found themselves where Skies had to basically do what Bosco was doing as the same operator in the same spot upstairs in Cocktail. And that was get the diffuser down and then keep somebody above to watch it. But you are telegraphing your play way early on by setting up a sledge upstairs. And they knew that Bosco was going to be in that spot. Now, the challenging part is hitting your shots to the sledge above. But it's challenging as an attacking team to try and dwindle those numbers of the defenders down before you can pull off that execute. You need to have somebody posted up in pillars. You need to make sure that laundry is cleared out. You might want to keep control of white stairs. And that's a big spread for a team like SSG after they get the diffuser down. They just weren't able to shore it up. And honestly, it really came down to that retake from DZ catching them off guard and Hot and Cold being able to pick off two very, very quickly before allowing Hyper to finish things off.
So we'll now see the site switch here for DarkZero as they'll head down into a first floor defense, trying their luck out on kitchen. Does look like the defense from the setup phase at least looks relatively horizontal here, but I'm assuming there's at least a little bit of play that's going to be happening upstairs as well here, because this is something that you kind of need to do on most sites for this map. And indeed, we're going to see Hyper playing around the white stairs, but it's a pretty passive hold, meaning that SSG is going to have pretty good negotiating rights over the entire third floor and a large majority of the second floor, pretty much right from the get-go here. Won't have to waste a huge amount of time droning everything out.
We'll see what really gets brought to the table, because SSG have been using Rampy in that 6th pick, flex pick style, now going from Nook on to Ying. And there is a bunker buster sort of play that Ying is capable of doing if there's a Wamai and a Jaeger on the board. When her Candelas go off, each of those separate flashbangs from a Candela will take out one charge of an ADS or a magnet. So you can clear out heaps of that gadgetry from both Jaeger and Wamai with just one Candela, freeing up the rest of your team. Additionally, Ying was buffed semi-recently to give her smokes. And while smokes aren't really in vogue at the moment, they are still incredibly strong at being able to cut off lines of sight, being able to obscure a possible plant going down, or even just simply redirecting the attention of your opponents. I'm very curious to see what Rampy is going to be able to do with Ying here, but now that I've talked at length about this, Rampy is probably going to be the first person to die, and we're not going to see a single Candela get thrown out. That's just the way it goes.
We did see quite a bit of smoke play in the match that Stokes and I casted on Monday. In fact, obviously didn't really involve either of these teams, so a little bit irrelevant to what's currently going on, but there's still quite a bit of room for it to be used if it's properly utilized. Just there's been teams really haven't been prioritizing it as of late, so we'll see if it comes into the picture for this round right here, if SSG are going to try to bring it into the fray whatsoever. Other than that, though, things are pretty much going as you might expect at this point in a round here. SSG taking that easy top control, as I had mentioned that they would get before. Not much contest coming in from Hyper either. He's fallen all the way back to VIP now and is going to be holding from the inside of here. They do know he's here, but still, it's not the easiest thing in the world to get rid of him. He doesn't have a shield to support, as you might often see, and as a result of that, we're going to see a Candela thrown right at him. He looks right at it, meaning he's not going to see anything for that fight. An easy opening frag for Rampy, and this is going to transition into SSG trying to get some whiskey control for themselves too.
Rough spot to be in if you're Hyper. Anybody that's played this game outside of professional play knows exactly what that feels like, by the way, and it is not a good feeling at all. Essentially just waiting to die at this point. So still 2 Candelas remaining for Rampy. Another kill for SSG, this time for Canadian, as they'll tase away at the Hibana. Going for the plant, Skies falls. Mint has been downed, and Eclipse will just activate as much of that Evil Eye as he can. Pulling the Eld out of his back pocket. He's trying to stop Canadian, but he gets finished off almost. No, it is. It's a flawless round. They didn't finish off a single member of SSG, and with that, Space Station grab match point on, or map point rather, on DZ's map.
SSG definitely scaring me a little bit there once again when it came down to the timing, but that's often kind of the nature of the beast for Siege right now, as you see these very low timed executes, and that's exactly what we got from SSG once again. Also very smart of them once more to save the Ying play up until the very end for an incredibly important 1v1, having to isolate out the VIP player so that they could first of all easily get into Freezer if that was going to be their goal, and not only that but also start transitioning over towards Whiskey and then working for better control of the main entrance into Kitchen too. That really was the start of the chain and the start start of the end, unfortunately, for DZ there, as once they had lost control, very much like that third floor site, at that point in the round, there was going to be no chance of them getting that control back due to the positions that they were playing into, and slowly but surely SSG just fully swarm in to take that control away from DZ and win out the round, as you said, in flawless fashion. So they're certainly going to be feeling good about themselves as we head into what could be the final round of the first map.
Now, I really liked what we saw at a Space Station and how they took command of delivery and then pushed from there. A lot of teams have left open freezer as of late, and it's been the default strategy for most defenders when it comes to kitchen, because you'll leave open some of that freezer wall, and then you'll keep somebody over in VIP. You'll keep somebody possibly over by watching white stairs, likely playing behind a deployable shield, maybe keep somebody at whiskey or playing over by brown stairs, or you can even rotate down if you've got somebody playing on that third or second floor, because the brown stairs are still there and you can hop down on the second floor from pillars quite easily. The problem is that when you bring a tool like a Ying, you are going to lose so much of that control. The player that you have that's playing in VIP isn't going to last too long unless there is an appropriate amount of ADSs or magnets in the way, and as we could see, they certainly were not. They were cleared out earlier on, and Rampy was able to take full advantage of Hyper playing in that spot. Additionally, with Hyper gone, very swiftly SSG pushes into freezer and then takes 2 gunfights, with Canadian getting a member of DZ who swung, leaving a 3v5 that was near unwinnable. And the remaining members of DarkZero were far back in Bakery, trying to hold off a freezer push. Funny enough, Space Station had some of their own struggles in a matchup all the way back in stage 1, where they got boxed out and pushed back to Bakery, and they weren't able to do too much with it. So they at least have the last laugh, because what they ended up falling victim to, well, now they're able to capitalize on. Skies gets droned out, and he misses the fall, and he'll get reset. That is actually quite coincidental and a stroke of luck for him, as he was only at 1 HP, so he'll get some health back in the process. But that is a tough spot to find yourself in. And you can see that there's some panic setting in for DarkZero as they scramble to relocate amidst this action happening with half of the round to go.
He realized at the moment he dropped too that it was either a mistake or he did that on purpose, because you can see by his movement there. He's like, oh no, something's gone wrong here. And yeah, thankfully it ends up working out in his favor, as you mentioned. Either way, though, he's brought back into the fight. Now, still maintaining controls over all the important areas right now. DarkZero are not out of this fray just yet, despite taking that hefty amount of early damage. DZ also has some control on the third floor still to bargain for, though how long he's going to be able to stay alive is yet to be seen. It's Mint trying to hold this position. Eclipse is still supporting from second to third floor white, but Fultz doesn't care about that smoke grenade that was thrown down the hallway. He's just going to rush right past it and use the position to be able to take out Mint. Rampy is also going to find success as he eliminates Hot and Cold, and that brings it down to a 5v3.
Not ideal for DZ, especially with Skies being on low HP. He's got the Roni in hand, so he's going to have to make these shots count before going back onto reload. Rampy again being the flex pick here, and he's going to be on Twitch as the Ash of Fultz is ready over by Reading, and he provokes a fight with Skies, but he gets taken out before the Nitro Cell can go off. Fultz droned on in. The advantage for Space Station continues to grow, as it could be another flawless round for them, and with it, they would end up taking the map. They have 30 seconds left to pull this one off, Blue.
Coming down to the wire here, it seems, for DZ. Their players trying so hard to stay alive and, more importantly, delay the eventual push from SSG. But Canadian, once again, coming out on top of the fight right there, picks up the first kill of the end here, and now leaves it all on to Eclipse, who's not going to be able to survive for very long either. Bosco finishes things off for SSG, and they take control of map number 1 here on Cafe, putting them ahead in the series and only one more map away from an overall victory on